Hey family, welcome to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks live on a Monday evening. Breaking news, wanted to give you just a quick update. I promise I am not going to be here long, but there has been an arrest and a charge. In case you hadn't heard, former Fort Worth police officer who's been identified as Aaron Dean has been charged with murder in the fatal shooting of Atatiana Jefferson in her home. So, I knew they weren't going to play with this guy. I knew that they would do a punctious pilot on him fairly quickly because he's a rookie, he's not vested. And like I said, this was an easy fix. And so it's been reported that the police officer union, I don't know what they call it there in Fort Worth, but they've been very, very quiet, probably for that very same reason, because, this guy hasn't really been around long and they're not going to put up too much of a fight on behalf of him, I don't think. We're not going to hear the kind of rhetoric that comes out of the mouth over in New York. You know who I'm talking about. So that's good news. The family is, obviously devastated. The young child that was present when Tatiana was shot and killed is 8 years old, and understandably, the family is having him now in counseling to make sure that he's going to be in a good place down the road. And listen, as encouraging as the quick arrest, the quick charge for murder is, do not be lulled into a false sense of security. We've seen this play out before. We get real jubilant and, we think that, justice is around the corner, and sometimes not so much. So we need to be vigilant, and we need to kind of take a trust but verify situation in this case. It's reported that the officer is currently, unless he's made bail since I turned my computer on to come to you, he's currently being housed at the Tarrant County Correction Center. And I haven't heard if there's a bail amount that he can even post. There may be, but I haven't seen any reports of that. The interim police chief over in Fort Worth is asking for the Texas Rangers to conduct an investigation, air quote, independent, right? We know how Texas Rangers get on, but they said no, they're not inclined to do that right now. Texas Rangers, according to the report from the interim chief, said that the investigation has gone on too long. It's been a few days, and they're there, Fort Worth, too far into the investigation for them to pick it up. Y'all, that sounds like some code talk right there, right? I don't know why Texas Rangers are afraid of this, why they can't just pick up the ball. They're professionals. They do this stuff all the time. I mean, it would be ideal to get an investigation from day one, right? But if you're brought in at day 3, you guys can't take the ball and run from here. It doesn't, I don't know what that's all about, but I'm of the mindset that if the Texas Rangers are telling you in a way that they don't want to investigate this, then please do not give it to them, because you could imagine what that might be like if you force their hand and give it to them. Maybe they'll just do a half-hearted investigation. I think factually that the role that the Texas Rangers would play would probably be an administrative role. I don't know if they're going to be the ones that would handle the criminal investigation, if you will. I don't know how that system is set up in Tarrant County. I don't know if the prosecutor, the district attorney over there, has their own investigators. Here in Los Angeles, our district attorney has their own investigators that can go out and conduct an investigation relative to a criminal prosecution. They're aided by whatever may have been done by, for instance, I'll talk about LAPD because that's what I know. Officers responding to the scene are going to do an initial preliminary investigation. We pass it off to the detectives, and then they follow up. They do a follow-up investigation, and then the detectives prepare a package for criminal consideration, which is presented to the district attorney, and then the district attorney decides whether or not there's sufficient evidence, a prima facie case, to prosecute criminally. And then once they agree, the prosecutor agrees to take the case on, now they have their own investigators in-house who can follow up with whatever else might be needed to shore up that investigation. That's how it would work here on the LAPD. I don't know how it works there in Fort Worth. But again, whatever administrative investigation that's going to be conducted by Fort Worth, because right now they're saying that they're going to handle the internal affairs portion, they're going to adjudicate it. Aaron Dean has already resigned in lieu of termination. Be clear. The interim chief made this clear in his press conference earlier, that he has put forth that Aaron Dean was dishonorably discharged, since he filed his paperwork to resign before they could actually get at him and fire him. So he's been listed as dishonorably discharged, and now there's been a notation in his personnel record that he should not be allowed to be credentialed anywhere in the state of Texas to be a police officer. Doesn't mean he couldn't go, to another state if he so chose, if he beats this case. I personally don't see him beating the criminal case, but the unknown is a jury, right? And a sentence, because we've seen what a compromised verdict looks like in the case of Amber Geiger. Found guilty, slap on the hand. We've seen this before. So we'll have to wait and let this thing play out. But, my advice, to everyone is focus. Focus, focus, focus. Because listen, not too very long ago in Texas, a couple of people lost their lives with regards to an errant officer who used deadly force as a first resort rather than a last resort like we're trained and taught. Maybe you don't remember these names because it's been a couple of months. I'm talking about O'Shea Terry back in May. And I think it's Pamela Turner, the lady who the officer accused her, Pamela Turner, Baytown, Texas. Officer accused her of, I think, taking his taser or something and wound up shooting and killing her outside of her apartment complex. Remember those two names? Well, listen, when was the last time you heard anybody talk about it in the news? I myself tried to research for the both of them to see what's going on. Both of these shootings happened in May of this year. And with regards to Pamela Turner over in Baytown, Texas, their radio's silent. I don't even know if they're even considering charging the officer with anything. And in the case of O'Shea Terry, again, not a whole lot is going on in terms of prosecution. We know that the officer, I think his name is Bob Tran, he was indicted shortly after the May shooting of O'Shea Terry. But I don't know what else is going on with that case. And I understand that criminal prosecution takes time, but is anybody talking about it? Is anybody protesting? Is anybody demanding, beside the family, to know what's going on, asking for justice in the case of Pamela Turner and O'Shea Terry? On September the 4th of this year, a couple of months ago, the family of O'Shea Terry filed a wrongful death suit. So that portion is moving forward. But again, listen, they just wait for us to change channels, family. They wait for us to get short-term memory. And, if we're not paying attention, you'll look around and Bo Toronto, he'll be given probation like the officer who shot and killed Akai Gurley. And maybe nothing will happen to the officer that shot and killed Pamela Turner, because we're not paying attention anymore, because there's another shiny object, because there's another family who's lost a loved one. And sadly, the Jefferson family is not the last. So let's stay focused, and let's, in our free time, let's support these families by just tweet, send an email, make a phone call to these agencies, to these department heads, and find out, hey, what's going on with Pamela Turner? I know that was back in May, and Sure, you guys are doing something, Mr. or Ms. District Attorney, but what are you doing? What are you doing with the case involving O'Shea Terry over in Arlington, Texas? What's going on? So, anyway, I just want to let you guys know that Aaron Dean has been charged with murder, and we'll see what happens next. Looking at a couple of okay, Ruben, you said there was an officer that resigned in Nashville for murdering a young man. Don't know that story, Ruben. If you would be so kind, could you just send me a link or send me a name, and I'll try to find out what that one's all about, because it's hard to keep up, family. I appreciate those of you who do reach out to me via my email, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks, as well as here on Facebook and my YouTube subbies. Thank you as well for sharing with me information on cases that I can't keep up with. Sadly, it's too much. Larry, you said the bail is 200,000. Okay, thanks for that. Larry, Ruben, Shonda, bail is 200,000 for Aaron Dean. So you know what that means, 10% with property, right? 10% with property. And listen, I mean, if he gets out, he gets out. Who cares? I'm more concerned with what are they going to do when this thing is taken to trial. I'm more concerned with him getting something that's substantive. And, now it sounds like, according to this interim chief, because he probably would like to be the chief, so it sounds like they're going to do something in terms of making sure that their officers understand de-escalation with regards to use of force, probably going to have some training given to their officers so that this does not happen again. That would be helpful. I said all along, I don't know that this officer wasn't properly trained. I can't believe they have an entire police force over on Fort Worth that hasn't received some kind of training in de-escalation verbalization before they hit the streets. What I'd really like to see them do is, how about they do something with those background checks before they hire these people? How about maybe they crack open their head and see what's going on with them with regards to implicit bias over there on the Fort Worth Police Department? Because listen, I saw this as I was coming on. I believe that they have been involved in 4 shootings this year. I think I read that somewhere, that Fort Worth Police Department has been involved in 4 shootings. That was one of the things that they asked during the press conference. Yeah, at least 4 fatal shootings involving officers. And it says in 3 of those cases, police said the suspect was armed, but in the 4th, it was later discovered that the man who was shot was holding a flashlight, not a weapon. So that's what's going on right now in the Fort Worth Police Department. So listen, they're going to listen for the code talk, family. They're going to say a lot of stuff to kind of calm you down and make you think that they're doing big things over there. Listen for the code talk. When you have an opportunity, protesters in Fort Worth, when you have an opportunity next to meet with the mayor and meet with this interim chief, ask them about the background checks. Ask them about the psychological evaluations that they're doing for their officers before they're hired, and ask them, matter of fact, demand that they do psychological re-evaluations of their police officers, I'll just say every 2 years, and make sure that those officers' head is in a good space, because 1 or 2 may have slipped through the crack that they didn't know were on the department, who happen to get frightened when they get within close proximity to Black folks. I don't know what that question would look like. I know that there's a series of tests that they give. I know when I took it on LAPD, it was like 500 or 800 questions, and a lot of the questions were repetitive, and there's a name for it, and there's a reason why they do it that way. They ask you the same thing, but they ask you different ways, because they're trying to see, number one, how truthful you are, and I'm sure the way in which you answer those psychological questions gives someone insight into how you think. So if there isn't something that already exists, maybe some of you young millennials out there could come up with a psychological questionnaire, an exam that would indicate when white people get close to Black folks, they get scared. so that we can identify them and make sure that they don't get on our police departments. I'm going to give you that as an assignment, young people. Could you help? Could you do that? And if you know, aren't really talented and gifted like that, could you just ask the mayor over there in Fort Worth? Maybe they can find somebody. Maybe they can find an organization, a company, somebody who can identify police officers on that department who perceive a threat when they see Black folks. So that's it. That's my 2 cents. Let's see what you guys are saying before I let you go. Yeah, Olivia, you said they acted really weird today, so apologetic. Listen, because right now somebody is trying to figure out, believe me when I tell you, if they have enough ink in the company inkwell for that check that they are going to have to write. They already know they are going to have to put a whole bunch of zeros after a number certain for this incident. And so that's why they are almost just getting themselves into a figure 4, why they're contorting themselves. And, you know, I would like to think that the apologies are sincere and genuine, and I'm not in the heart of the police chief or the mayor, so I can't say that they're not. But like I said, we've seen this thing play out too many times where they give us lip service, where we get a lot of code talk and double speak. And, you know, they promise that they're going to do a thing, and maybe they do a little something, but not enough. They're going to retrain their officers for sure. They're going to bring in somebody who's going to sit them down and have a fireside chat with them. But what happens in a couple of years? What happens in 6 or 7 years? They have 4 people lose their life in Fort Worth, and this is just what, October? How is that okay? Why weren't they concerned with the loss of 3 lives ago? Why did we have to wait until you get to 4, not including Atatiana? Why did we have to wait for 4 lives to be lost before they would even consider, should we do something? Do we have a problem? Sometimes, you know, I think they just say what they need to say to us, to you, to quiet you down in the moment. And so that's why when I hear it, I say that I decipher police code talk for you, and I tell you the things that I think you should say if given an opportunity. Fort Worth, you have an opportunity. They seem very amenable to bending to the will of the people. Get informed, get engaged. Let's try to make this family the last one, at the very least in Fort Worth, if not across the nation. So that's it, family. Barry, you said there's not enough money to bring her back. No, there's not enough. There's never enough money to bring a loved one back. But certainly they should be compensated because you can't make them whole. But they shouldn't be able to just sashay away and not do something for the family. Because there's a little boy who's 8 years old, and you know, we don't know how he's going to be affected and how long term he's going to be affected, what this is going to do to his little life, his ability to maybe learn, comprehend, you know, sleep. You know, there's just a plethora of things that could happen to this little guy. And so there needs to be funding sufficient for him going forward, that they can help him however they need to help him for the rest of his life. And for his mom, because she's affected, right? So there's a lot of ancillary people who are going to be suffering and hurting because of this. And so that means a lot of zeros, a lot of ink. We'll see what happens. Okay, family, let's see. I can't see anyone being sincere about an apology when you have to read it off a piece of paper. Well, then there's that, Rochelle. Is that Sheriff Bilal? Hey, Sheriff Rochelle Bilal over in Philadelphia. Sometime next month, family. You've heard me talk about her before, my sister girl in Philly. Look for that name on the ballot box, Rochelle Bilal, 1st female Black sheriff soon to be elected. I appreciate you for taking time out of your evening, Rochelle, and to chime in. Let's see. Trying to scroll down and read your comments. Okay, we're good. I just wanted to be here real quick and just to share that information with you. So again, Aaron Dean, former disgraced, forced to resign in lieu of termination, Fort Worth police officer, has been charged with murder in the fatal shooting of Atatiana Jefferson in her home over the weekend. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Until then, be good, be safe.